I feel good.
It's feeling right.
It's feeling good.
Here's to good friends.
Just go ahead and hit record on Keybase.
Cheers.
There's no reason I can. We can.
That's sort of an oaky afterbirth.
What was that?
She did tell me to get a beer and some cheese fries over at Eskimo Joe's.
That's very nice, lovely. I only hope you feel this way when I'm done. Because I could destroy this night in 2 seconds.
Why is that funny?
Well, I think it's a bit funny to be trying to define nothing.
Smooth as a bourbon on a summer day. Strong as a peated scotch in the winter night. This is a fair warning. The Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Just want to let you guys know that we've been trying very hard to bring you this episode this evening.
It's true.
For whatever reason, the last 30 minutes have just not gone according to plan.
A lot of it has been human error. A lot of it hasn't been.
We've recorded this segment already.
This is our third time. This is the furthest we've made it, I think.
Pretty close.
Pretty close, you know. But
yeah, it's close.
All the same, here we are.
We're here.
Here we are.
And it's so great to be with you guys. Listen, I could not wait to get in front of this microphone today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
I was so excited. You know, we just got back from Clear Creek Monastery.
Yes. Great. I had a great weekend.
This is, okay, if you do not have a yearly weekend where you get away, a yearly retreat where you can get away and you can just spend time with the Lord and you can dedicate the weekend to nothing but prayer and study, or just, you know, make sure it's mainly prayer, but just get away, silence, prayer, study. I highly recommend it. It's one weekend. Just do it. Just
spiritual reading.
Just do it and tell your wife that, you know, by doing this, you're going to come back as a better husband, a better father.
Because you will. But also encourage her to do the same thing. You know,
right.
Like,
yeah.
As a Christian, I think that's something, if you can. Not everybody can, but if you can, if there's any way you can do it, you should make a yearly retreat, really an annual thing, that just something you do. And if you can't go somewhere, because some people just have their situation is such that they can't, pick a day where you do a home retreat, where you do kind of seclude yourself, right? Where, you know, it's just kind of get as much quiet as you can, because really, it's just one of those things that makes a huge difference for me. Like this weekend, just on a human level, there were a lot of things like I just didn't kind of want to go, you know, like.
Oh, you didn't?
Intellectually I did, you know, but like, it'd be nice just to stay home and like work on my I've got a lot of things going on at home.
Same here. Yeah.
You know, like.
I was ready though.
But I knew, because I feel that way, it's going to be a good retreat, right? You know, because a lot of times when if you're all excited about it, sometimes for me, and I think, oh, I'm going to go, this is going to be a good retreat, you know, like, then I go, and it's, you know, it just, it's a little underwhelming maybe, but if I have a lot of reasons not to be there, you know, it's kind of like more difficult and arduous to get myself to commit. Then when I do, boom.
Well, and
like, fantastic weekend.
And know whenever you plan this, there's going to be things that are going to go wrong in your family to prevent you from going. Either your wife is going to get sick, she's going to be stressed, your
Stuff
kids
will come up at the last minute.
Right.
Yeah.
But don't let that deter you. While we were there, I spent like 6 hours reading and about 6 hours in prayer on Saturday, and it was awesome. It was so great.
Yeah, and I love going to Clear Creek because, you know, they don't give retreats. That's not what they do.
No.
But if you go and just simply attend the hours with all the monks, that is a retreat in and of itself. Just sitting there, there's something so ordered about the way that they pray, about the chant that they do. It's so beautiful. And just read through the Psalms with them.
Right.
It's so beautiful.
We met a dad there who had his 2 younger sons from Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
He flew them down. Like, that's how important it was.
And they came last year, too, is what he said.
Right.
Last year, he said they drove.
Yeah, 24 hours.
28.
Oh, 28? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it's just so... Now, it's so important, I think, to be able to have a reset, to be able to orient yourself and dedicate a weekend to God.
Mm-hmm.
Now...
A sacred weekend.
During this weekend, we also found out that the Catholic Man Show peaked, and we weren't even aware of it.
I mean, we kind of suspected.
We found out something.
I suspected we peaked a long time ago.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah. We're on the down slope.
We're getting old.
Right.
You know, we're not
Catholic,
we're not cool.
Catholic
anymore.
old. Well, speak for yourself. I'm still pretty cool.
Dude, you're closer to 40 than I am.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm still pretty cool.
Like a lot.
I'm still pretty cool. Do you want to? I'll let you tell him.
Okay, I'll tell the story. So, this is a great story. I was so, and this is a story about God's work, not ours, right? Because obviously, you know, like we get stories like this from time to time, and you know, they're awesome, they're edifying for me to hear. But it's actually not a story about us. But
yeah, it makes me want to keep it. Like, there's times where I'll feel like
it keeps us going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Have we run our course? Like, should we kind of close up shop, and then
something like this happens? Yeah. So, you know, we like to go to Clear Creek for our camp out every year. And when we're fortunate enough, we can have one of the monks on our show with us. So this is a few years ago. We had Brother Nesbitt on our show.
Father Nesbitt.
Brother Father Uncle Nesbitt. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but
mortification.
Okay, he's been on our show more than once. Brother Nesbitt has. So this last weekend, the monks, they just finished a new wing at their monastery. Big deal.
Right.
Okay. It's gorgeous.
Big project.
Big, huge project. And so they had it open for the public. It's the only time that women were ever going to be allowed in this building because it's part of the
cloister.
The cloister, right? And so Juan and his family were there. Neither of you or I had the opportunity to go, but also the monks had they had special permission to speak. Because most of the monks, you know, they live in silence, and certainly they don't interact with the public. That's just not. But on this particular day, there's all these people there, and so they all had permission to, you know,
to be hospitable,
to converse, and to be hospitable with all the guests, right? And so this one young monk, came running up to Juan and said, "Are you Juan Posada?" And Juan's like, "Yes." And he said,
"No." He said,
"With the Catholic
Jess."
Man Show?"
He said, "Jess."
Jess. Yeah, you're right. That is what he said. And the guy, he said, "Well, my name is Brother Cosmas Marie, and I'm here." And I'm paraphrasing this conversation, but I'm here because of the Catholic Man Show. He said he was, you know, trying to figure out where should he be discerning. He had, you know, kind of figured out he had a call to religious life, and trying to figure out where should he go. And he heard Brother Nesbitt. He used to listen to the show. He doesn't now because he's in Clear Creek, but he heard Brother Nesbitt and said, "Oh, Clear Creek, I should go check them out." And he did, and now he's a monk there.
Yes.
From listening to the show. I mean, that's just awesome. Praise God for.
And it was hilarious because we
you know, for his vocation.
We were talking to Brother Father Nesbitt, and we were telling the story, and he was like, "Oh yes, I remember." And then he kind of stopped, and he goes, "You know, that really kind of surprises me because he's a really refined man. I'm surprised,
he was listening to your show."
Which was hilarious.
Which he meant like he's only 20 years old. Like I'm sure he's never smoked a cigar or had a glass of whiskey in his life. You know?
And so anyway, and then we were talking to Father Bachman, who's the guest master. He's been on our show as well, talking about chant, and he was just cracking up about the intro to our podcast. He like could not handle himself talking about this. He was like, "I love it. It's so funny."
The music. He just thought the bumper music was
so funny. He's like, it shows you guys don't take yourself too seriously, but you guys are having fun. And
meanwhile, I'm over like, "Bachman, I think it's good." Okay. Yeah. I don't think it's funny, Bachman.
It was so great. It was so much fun. We really enjoyed it. Shout out to David Biddle, our good friend, who puts it on every year.
Indeed. Indeed.
I don't know. I just loved it. It was just such a great weekend. Finished up Oh well, I have not finished. I have like 4 more pages of The Way of the Pilgrim book that I've been reading.
Sweet.
Really, really great book. If you want to know more about the Jesus Prayer,
that's the book.
That's
the book for you.
It's a good book to read. Yes.
We're going to be talking about a book today, but before we do that, we still got a few minutes left. Let's mention what we're having, the fine beverage.
Why don't you go ahead?
So we're having some beverages from Trinitine Brewery, which is a brewery that you've never heard of because it doesn't exist yet exactly. Although
it exists.
It exists, but you can't. They're not for sale yet. What's the guy's name? Who's
Trevor Alcorn.
So he sent us this
awesome
this stuff.
care
it's
package.
Incredible. Everything that he sent us.
Yes.
He sent us these bottles with all these incredible labels, fantastic beer. He sent us like some. He has like decorations for every representative of every beer. The amount of stuff that this guy has done, he's gonna
Trevor, may God reward you for your charity.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of stuff, Trevor, that you have done before you have even sold a single beer is
incredible.
It is incredible, and clearly he's got some ins or some talent with design, right? Because some of the artwork is also. I mean, just the artwork in and of itself that represent the beer is amazing.
The Alcorns are brewers for generations. They're a family of brewers. Okay, and so he does that with his dad. They've been doing it for quite a while, and then recently they've kind of been taking it a little bit more seriously, and they're hoping to get being able to be distributed this year in 5 states. But their merchandise store is about to go up online.
Go check it out. I mean, it really is incredible.
TrinityBrewery.com. When we get back on the other side of this break, we're running out of time on the radio, but when we get back, we'll talk about the beer for a few minutes.
Yeah, I do want to say a little bit more about it.
Because I'm having a double IPA, you're having a stout. The names of the beers are genius. Hang in there. We'll be right back. See, way better intro. Way better start.
Dude, it was meant to be.
Meant to be.
Ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. We are here all by ourselves. There's nobody else here.
Yeah.
No Jim, no Juan. We are still friends with Juan, just in case you're wondering. Oh, we're all still friends. We did see him. I saw him for the first time in like a month this last weekend.
Same.
And he's just been all over the place. He had
traveling.
to take a couple work trips and it's just anyway.
His wife's birthday. There's a lot of things going on. Also, Jim told me he's been shipping out our new hoodies, one you're wearing right now, to our $50 and more patrons. So if you are one of those, get ready because you're about to get your hoodie.
Check the mail.
Yep. You can go to patreon.com/The Catholic Man Show. Support us. You can get awesome beer glasses, 16-ounce beer glasses.
Beer can glasses.
That's right. And then a whiskey glass. We give away. In fact, I know we say this we don't say this very often, but we lose money the first month. You become if you're a $10 a month patron, we lose money the first month because we give such great.
So please don't sign up and cancel. Please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
But really, we do need your support. We haven't really said this in a while. We do actually need your support. The more support we have on Patreon, the more we can do. Our goal here at the Catholic Man Show is to change hearts, have people come to know Jesus Christ in such a way that they fall in love with him more and more every day, so that they can go out and spread the news of his salvific work on the cross to the rest of the world. I mean, that's what we want. We want Jesus to reign as King all over the world. We want him to reign in our own hearts. So help us if you like the show. Please do support us. Go to Patreon, whatever you can give. That just thank you for that.
If everybody listens here, gives even the $4 a month,
right?
We'd be on our way.
Oh gosh, I mean that would be incredible. So we don't keep any of the money we get from Patreon. We put it all back into the show. So thank you for all of our patrons who have been supporting us for so long.
Shout out.
Yeah. And please do support us if you feel called to do so. Let's talk about this beer because once again, this brewery, the guys over there at Trinitine Brewery, they're just incredibly Catholic. I know you probably can tell that with a name like Trinitine Brewery. I'm drinking the Dies Irae, I think is. I'm actually not sure how to say this. Irae. I don't
Okay.
know if it's Iri.
So I was trying to pull up this email before we started. I could not find it. The guy who sent it to me sent me another one because somehow I lost it. However, he sent me an email, and we need to have a correction on the show, and also just kind of a fun fact. One thing we say on the show, not correct. We say that grace builds on nature. Not correct. That's actually not a good translation of what Aquinas says.
Okay.
Which we actually know this, but it's actually grace perfects nature. It's kind of a small difference. However, we're not semi-Pelagian in this, saying like the more you work, the more grace. That's not the case. And
I have more grace because I've got more body, baby.
Right. That's why I don't diet. I don't diet.
I'm 500 pounds, so I can can get more grace. It's a bigger platform.
Right. So he was just like laughing at it,
I'm just a bigger grace plate. All right.
But he sent us an email. He was like, "You guys are awesome. Thanks so much." He gets a kick out of our attempt to say Latin because I think he's a specialist.
He's a Latin guy.
Yeah. And so he thought it was really funny. But whenever we try to pronounce things in Latin, but I wanted to give a shout out to him. I can't find the email, so I don't know your name. Anyway,
but I did read your email.
But I did read your email.
So anyway,
which is better than what you do.
Yeah, that's true. I'm drinking the stout. It's fantastic.
Yes.
There's a lot of flavor in here.
Okay.
I mean, it's like packed.
I'm drinking the St. Joseph Terror of Demons Double IPA. Epic. He says that on this label we have to have a prayer to St. Joseph. This is why I love everything that he does is Catholic. Like in regards to bottling the beer, like making the beer, like everything he does is just so Catholic. Even the top of the beer cap.
Yeah.
But he has a prayer to St. Joseph on the back of the beer. And he says, St. Joseph the Terror of Demons, one of the awesome titles of saints, if I might add, like one of the best.
Totally.
And he said, this beer itself is on the hoppier side of things, sure to scare the hell out of anyone that drinks it.
Nice.
Yeah, Terror of Demons.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trevor, thank you so much. We're going to send you a care package as well. Thank you package here pretty soon.
And if you have a beer that you want us to try on the show, send it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Or a bottle of whiskey. Send us one of your favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do it. We'll give you a shout out. We'll try it.
Yeah.
We love that. We love it.
It's yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, Adam. I love it. Okay.
I do too.
So, anything else before we jump into the topic?
I don't think so. Yeah, let's just jump in. Let's get, because it looks like based off of the notes that you sent me,
we have 4 pages here.
Yeah, we have a lot to cover. So let's do it.
I think some of it might go quickly, but we're going to be talking about surprise.
I don't think so. I'm going to really draw this out.
All right, fine. That's good. Let's go deep. Let's go deep.
Okay, let's go.
We're going to be talking about fatherhood today.
That's a topic we haven't talked about before.
Right, I know. This is a book from a book, mostly from a book. Mostly from a book. That's called
Starting out great.
The Christian Father.
Right.
What he should be and what he should do. Originally written in German by the Reverend W. Kramer.
Back when Germans were good theologians.
Yes, which is probably a while ago. Not lately.
That's not a slight on Pope Benedict either.
No, it isn't. I was really thinking of him as I think there's probably one other exception. I don't remember his name, but there was like one other German guy here recently.
Joseph Pieper, his philosopher.
Okay, but he was like a long time ago.
No, so this wasn't. He died in the 90s.
Yeah, but I mean, he was writing like 50 years ago. It's like
not
before
long
we were alive, bro.
It's not long ago.
So this is copyright 1883. Okay.
I got you the book.
You got me this book. It's fantastic. I'll hold it up for the camera. It's like a great binding, nice hardcover, nice size. I was able to read basically all of it in a day because there's a huge section in the back that's just all kinds of prayers for all different situations. Mm-hmm. There's actually some of them.
Some of the prayers that are in there are in our book, Living Beyond Sunday, Making Your Home a Holy Place.
Yeah, it's got the Stations of the Cross back here, which I really liked. This Stations of the Cross. It was like, it's not too long, but it was also like not watery, not watered down, you know. So anyway, what we're doing today is reflections on reflections. Let's reflect on some of these reflections. These are just some of the notes I took from reading the book, some of the highlights
That's a good reflection right here.
Yeah, and we're going to go through them.
Sweet.
Have you had a chance to read this book? You got it for me, so I didn't know if you had read it.
I have not read cover to cover, but I have picked out things.
So right off the bat, he talks about names. And this is just something that I thought we've mentioned it kind of before, but I hadn't really thought about it in these terms. You know, how as fathers we share a name with God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, wow, that's very profound that we share God the Father. Like, that's not his name in the way that Jesus is the name of the second person of the Trinity. But God, the first person of the Trinity, he is Father, right? I mean, that's kind of like a personification of who he is. So he says that names come from God and indicate the nature of those who bear them. So
one time I was with a Muslim and we were praying together, and I said, "In the name of the Father," and he was like, "Stop blaspheming." You know what that's from?
No.
That's a whole talk that Scott Hahn gave. But Trent Horn's wife, Laura Horn, did a video about like this, and it was hilarious.
She is hilarious.
She's so funny.
Who knew that Trent's wife was,
by the way,
super funny?
Trent's going to come on our show this year in August. Trent, bring the family.
Yeah.
Let's have Laura on the show too.
She can totally be on the show.
Someone needs to tweet or something, Trent, and let him know. Like,
I mean, it didn't surprise me that Trent's wife would be the fun one. Not that Trent isn't fun, but he's like not the.
He's not like extroverted,
right?
I would
he's not like the guy in the room cracking jokes. You know what I mean? He's awesome to talk to, super smart, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't surprise me when his wife was, outgoing.
Yeah, because I think he's even told us before he's an introvert.
Yeah. So, names.
Okay, names. Sorry,
Father. Right.
I told you I was going to
draw
this out,
right. And I believed you. Yeah. So think about this: when your first child is born,
mm-hmm.
God, like in the Old Testament, Peter, Christ changes Peter's name.
That's New Testament.
In the Old Testament and with Peter is what I meant to say.
Okay.
You're right. Thank you. There's just handful of people in the book where God gives them a new name.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He does
Saul,
something
Paul.
similar with you. When your first child is born, he gives you a new name.
Mm-hmm.
His. He gives you the name of Father, which is, like, as I was reading this, it's like, man, that's very profound that God is just, he gives everything, right? So what is the goal of fatherhood? Why has God taken his children, because really, the children that you have, they're really his children, in a much more real way than they're your children. But why has he given them to you? What is the purpose? He says that it's that we may grow, that they may grow up and become truly good men and women, that they may learn the Christian faith, that they might grow into good Christians, obviously. So it's our job to ensure that they receive a good Christian education and to form them into holy adults. We've talked about this a lot, to provide, protect, and establish, the role of the father.
Go back to an episode, just type that. If you type in provide, protect, establish on thecatholicmanshow.com, you will find multiple things that we've talked about regarding this.
And so he says that all will admit that the welfare of the world, especially in our day, depends, after God, on the father and the mother. Because it's up to parents to raise good people.
Yeah, and this is the beauty of what Aquinas says, like, the end of marriage, is the first thing is procreation, right? Of children, and the reason why this is such a fruit is so that they all may be up, may go to heaven to glorify our Lord.
Yeah.
To praise and worship Him for all of eternity.
Yeah. Build the kingdom.
To build the kingdom up.
Yeah.
It's way easier to have children
than to convert somebody. That's what I think. It's like, oh man, if you're trying to make more Christians, it's a lot easier just to have more kids. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Talking about fatherhood this evening. Good topic to talk about. Talked about it before. If you've been listening to the Catholic Man Show for a while and you have not rated or reviewed the podcast, please do so. That really helps. We don't ever ask. The thing about marketing is, and this is what people tell us all the time, is that you have to continually ask to like, subscribe, share, review, rate. And that is exhausting to me. Like, to me, totally. I know if I like something, I'm just going to go do, like, I'm going to like and subscribe to it. I'm going to rate it. I'm going to review it because I like it.
You know what I think is even a bigger deal than reviewing the podcast? If you like the podcast, tell somebody that you know. Like, tell somebody, hey, you should listen to the Catholic Man Show, or you should, if there's other podcasts that you like,
or pick out a show and say, listen to this specific one.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to this one, or just the whole word of mouth. That's really the best. That's the best thing you can do for any product, for any podcast, no matter what it is. So if you like our show, tell somebody. Tell them they should listen to it too. So let's get back about fatherhood. What is the primary way that a father does this? Right before the break, we were talking about how, role of father and mother is to raise holy children. So how does a father do this? How does a father raise holy children? Reverend Kramer, he says, by example. The words of the mother may urge and exhort, but the example of the father draws the children and is imitated by them. So another thing that we've talked about before in the show is how there's this weird psychological phenomenon that happens in children until they're past the age of like 2. It's a long time where children their self-identity is wrapped up with their mother. So it's difficult for them to distinguish themselves from their mother. They're just so closely bonded that they view them as the same person, right? But the dad is the very first other in a child's life. And so because of that, the dad literally represents the world to a child. And so whatever dad does in the world is obviously the child is thinking, that's what I'm supposed to do.
In the world.
In the world. That's the way I'm supposed to be. Because, well, there's like me and mom here at home, but dad is everything else.
Right.
And so, especially for fathers, example is a huge, huge, huge deal. And Reverend Kramer says it's not enough just to know the teachings of the faith.
Now remember this. It's not enough just to know the teachings of the faith. Now, how many Catholics in the pew even know the teachings of the faith? And here, he's not even starting with, you should know the teachings of the faith.
Right. Yeah, no. Yeah, because that doesn't do any good.
Right.
There's a lot of atheists who know the teachings of the faith.
That's correct.
He says you have to believe and make them operative in your life. So without doing those things, you'll be totally ineffective.
This is
father.
Yeah.
We're talking about basic stuff here.
Right. On the other podcast that I host, the other cool podcast that I host with Bishop Condola.
Yeah. I try not to think about that, okay? Going behind my back.
By the way, you can look that up Eastern
I'm going to sneak my way onto that podcast.
Come on.
I'm just going to sneak in and be like, "Oh, you guys recording?
This is ridiculous.
I thought this was the bathroom."
But on the show, Bishop Condola says something like if you do not live out your faith, your children are going to know that this is just something that as kids we're supposed to do, and that it's not something that's to be taken seriously once you get to be an adult. And then once they become an adult, they realize, I don't have to do this anymore. This isn't something that I'm supposed to do. This is a children's thing.
Right.
And so he makes he makes the statement that it's like, no. You have to live out your Catholic faith. It's not enough just to know it. It's not just enough to go through the motions in Mass. Mm-hmm. But you must live
It's got to be
Catholic.
Real. Yeah. It's not just a Sunday thing.
You have to have a real relationship with our Lord.
Yeah.
And kids are super great BS meters.
Your kid's eternal salvation is on the line. So
not only yours, but your kids.
Yeah, your kids. Right. I mean, yeah. Forget about you. What about your kids, So he says, what we're looking for is a father in whom the picture of a good Christian father is presented to the eyes of his children. One in whom they can see what a Catholic Christian is, how he judges, what he loves, what he shuns, how he speaks, how silent, what he avoids, what he does, and how he does it. Right? All of the stuff. It's not just about, oh yeah, he goes to Mass, but it's about how does he take the trash out? How does he eat? What does he say? What does he not? The Christian life should inform every single thing all the time, right?
Where this is the beauty of like Teresa Lisieux, right? Where she talks about how she can wash a dish for the love of our Lord.
Right. And if you're doing it for that reason, you should do it. You should be doing it the best you can. You should be doing it all things better because of that. So he lays out a warning here, which I was like, he's very blunt, and I'll just read it word for word.
Do you appreciate bluntness from priests?
I do,
personally,
because I'm a real man. So yes, I do.
Okay.
Like people who don't, I think it's like, well, maybe you should just be a little tougher. I don't know. Yes, and maybe it's my personality, and so that's also why I feel that way. But yes, I think that we need more bluntness, not less. I don't think we should be coddling people. You can't coddle someone to heaven, all right? Life's tough. Get a helmet. He says a warning to fathers. You love your children and wish them to be happy. Be assured, if you do not bring them up good Christians, you place a cause that will destroy their happiness, a cause that will bring them eternal misery. So you want them to be happy? Well, the only way to do that is to get to heaven. Help them get to heaven.
This goes back to what I was talking about. We were talking about with Carlo, and when we were talking about how to start a conversation about the faith, especially with somebody who's agnostic or something like that. And I said that I thought one of the best tactics is to start out with happiness.
Happiness,
like even natural happiness.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And then Carlo, I actually kind of disagreed a little bit.
He pushed back. I think it was not that he didn't agree with that approach. I think the way, maybe as I recall, you said like that's like always the best way. And I think what he was saying is like, no, not for everybody, and because some people will say like, I am happy. I'm happy as an atheist, right?
Right.
Of course, they might think that honestly at that moment.
Well,
but without Christ, there will come that moment.
Right. This is a grammar issue. Mm-hmm. Grammar, logic, rhetoric. Like this is a grammar issue. This is why this is important to start out with. Well, what is happiness?
Sure.
If you understand what you mean by happiness, then you can move on.
Right. You're actually not fulfilling your ultimate good, right? Right. So then, Reverend Kramer, he moves into some dangers, the dangers of that might pop up in fatherhood as we father, which I appreciated. This whole book is very practical.
Yes.
Easy to read, very practical. And so here's the first danger. He says, the conscientious father is careful, and he must be, to confine his work or business to moderate limits, corresponding to his necessity and his circumstances. So I ask you, does a promotion mean, like if it's like you're working hard to get a promotion, and if you get it, does that promotion mean that you'll have to spend more time in the office? Do your children need more money, or do they need more of their father? And Reverend Kramer says, when you devote yourself entirely to worldly occupations, you have no time to attend properly to their salvation. So obviously we want to strive for success as Christians, as Catholics, right? Because we want to do all things well. We want to do our job the best we can, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to have order. And I think this is a real temptation for a lot of guys who, fatherhood isn't something that maybe comes natural to them. Maybe they didn't have a great example as a father growing up. And so even though they want to be good dads, they find themselves like, kind of by default, spending more time in the office, taking a phone call as soon as they get home, right? So that they can, kind of go and seclude themselves, whatever. Being people who are just workaholics because that's the only thing that they know to do, right?
And they're good at it.
They're good at it. And maybe they don't feel like they have the other things to give as a dad. So like, I'll just give them a boat, right?
Give me the boat.
Yeah, give Adam the boat, and you go home and play with your kids. It's like, you know what? If you're one of these people, because I think if you are, you probably know it. The easiest thing about being a dad, at least when your kids are young, all you have to do is go home and lie down on the floor, and they will like
swarm you.
They'll swarm you and they'll like attack you, and it's great. I love it, right? I do it all the time, like because I get to lay down. Okay.
Super. There's a selfish motive here,
right? And it's like they can just like jump on my head for a while, and it's like I still can rest actually at the same time. It's amazing, you know.
Do you think that this is also an issue with the idea of side hustles? So in this world today,
Maybe.
it's always there's a temptation of, okay, I have my real job, and then I have other side jobs to get side money.
Yeah.
And the more side jobs that I have, the more income and different revenue streams that I can have to provide for my family. What if we just did our one job really well, and then sacrificed a little bit, based, if we don't have that money.
Yeah. So
I think
I want to try to echo Reverend Kramer's approach, because he was fair and balanced about it. He said, like, unless it's necessary. So, you have to weigh. This is like the role of a father. I went to confession at Clear Creek, and this old priest who was in there, he like said something about talking about being a father, and he said something about as you continue in your very weighty duties. Like, he was very like clear that the job that I'm doing as a father was heavy, right? And it's as I was reading this book, and so I know that was like another thing. Christ wanted me to hear that, like the weighty duties of fatherhood, right? So, but let me finish this thought on the other side of the break.
This is the Catholic Man Show.
This is the Catholic Man Show.
Is this number 4?
This is number 4.
Wow.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan. We're talking about fatherhood. We're talking about income. One of the things that we're talking about a book called The Christian Father: What He Should Be and What He Should Do by Reverend
Kramer.
Reverend W. Kramer. And he's talking about one of the dangers of fatherhood is basically being a workaholic. Spending too much time earning and not enough time fathering. I think he took a good approach. Like, let's say you're doing a side hustle so that in order that your wife can stay home with the kids.
I think that's heroic.
So it depends. Like, when you talk about the side hustle, it really depends. Everybody, there is no rule of thumb. It's
right.
So unique to everybody. It's just something that
I agree.
I think you need to be able to honestly look in the mirror and tell yourself that what you're doing is, like, you do have your kids and your family's best interest at heart. If you can honestly say that to yourself, you're doing the right thing. Whether it is or isn't God's will, if you're open and honest, that's all God will. He'll make up the rest. You know what I mean? But it's an important thing. The next one, big, gradual weakening of faith. And for me, this is like one of the things I think about a lot. Not the gradual weakening of faith, but the things that he brings up that might cause it here.
Okay.
He says, this is the greatest misfortune for a man to suffer the shipwreck of his faith. If such a misfortune befalls a father, the foundation of a Christian education is swept away from under the feet of his children, and thus the essential condition of their true welfare is made impossible for time and eternity. Like, it's heavy. It's like, all right, okay, what do I need to do to avoid this? Well, he says, how great is the danger which besets a father in these evil days, when he is compelled to associate daily and hourly with men who waver in their faith. When he reads books.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Because I could hear, somebody hears us say that, and they're like, "Well, I have good friends who are not of the faith." And it sounds like what he's saying is for us not to associate with them. And then it's also like, well, how do I bring them to faith if I'm not associating with them?
Yep. I think that is what he's saying to a certain extent.
Okay.
I do think, and I think he's also talking about people who are at work. Like, let's say you work in a factory, or, you just, whatever your job site is, wherever you work, there's people around. Like, this is the late 1800s. Okay. So the average workplace for a man probably was a lot different than it is today.
I think that's a valid.
So if you're on a factory or whatever, in a yard of some kind, you might have no choice but to be around and exposed to people with unsavory conversation, with negative opinions, of the church, of faith, things that just don't edify and build up the life of faith. And over time, just like advertising, those messages will have an impact on you. To me,
Patreon.com/Catholic Man Show.
That's right. We need good media. That, to me, that's what I'm taking away from this. It's not that, don't be friends with anybody who's not Catholic. He's not saying isolate yourself in a bubble, but he's talking about dangers to your faith.
Just wanted to.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did that. So he's talking about how great is the danger which besets the father for these things when he reads books or watches shows written by unbelieving and immoral men. When he
Principle of the Integral Good.
That's right. Look up that episode. When he takes periodicals and papers or listens to radio programs or watches shows which never tire in ridiculing the Holy Church. When he leads that sensual and idle life which conduces to gluttony and intemperance. So he goes on to say, even if you are firm in your faith, such intercourse, such readings, such entertainment will do you injury. They will gradually but surely have the same effect on the life of your soul that the cold north wind has on nature in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, and I think every man can relate to this insofar as when you're around certain people, you tend to pick up their habits.
I do. Yeah. When I'm around somebody who cusses, all of a sudden I find myself like later on about, I have to like almost catch the word right before it's like, I can't believe I almost said that, because I don't. That's not something, and all of a sudden here I am doing it, So yeah, like the people you're around, they just have an impact. You're affected by it, whether you want to be or not, no matter, it's just a human nature thing. And I think that we need to take a really honest approach, an honest evaluation of the media that we choose to,
This is hard.
Like,
this is
the movies you watch, you might say, look, I'm an adult, okay? I understand the difference between right and wrong, okay, and like
I can watch Game of Thrones.
Right, exactly. I can watch Game of Thrones, or I can.
That's not a thing.
I can mentally filter those things out. I know.
People don't even watch that anymore.
I know, but
thanks be to God.
And it's like, look, do you want to be a saint? I say yes. Okay. If you say no, go listen to a different podcast. But if you say yes, I want to be a saint. Okay, do you think St. Teresa of Avila would watch that movie? Or do you think when they took the Lord's name in vain, she would absolutely say, turn that off, get it out of my house? That movie, that kind of thing. This is a house, like, hey, do you want to be holy or not? Okay.
As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Right. Okay, and I understand the movie might be entertaining. Is your entertainment more important to you than your faith?
Yeah.
Okay, and I understand that seems radical because it did to me at first. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, no, I have just been born into a world that says one thing is radical, but really we're looking at shadows on the wall thinking that that's the real thing, and the real deal's outside, okay?
Did you just make that up?
I did. That's an analogy I made up. Okay,
it's an allegory, actually.
You're right. It is an allegory. That's how good I am at allegories. So the next one, he says, faith is indeed the most necessary condition for your children to receive that which God will they should, to obtain through you, namely the gift of true Christian sentiments and a life corresponding to them. So the next thing he talks about.
Hold on, real quick.
Okay,
I'm sorry. There's a couple guys that listen to our show for whatever reason. Find it very necessary to express their opinion about us in a very negative way constantly, which is fine.
All right.
I'm not opposed to criticism.
I'm not either.
I'm okay with it. And so what they would say, they're
see, you're being affected by them.
Well, I'm trying to present it in the most charitable way as I can.
Okay.
What they constantly say is that we are living in this dream world with the young kids, and that one day our kids are going to grow up and realize how ridiculous we were raising them, and that they're going to fall away from the faith.
Look,
and
I don't know if they have like hang-ups about their own fatherhood, that they have they're judging themselves because that happened to them. I don't know who these people are that you're talking about, but yes, I know that my children are sinners. they will be sinners. I was a sinner. Okay, I still am a sinner, but
I was a sinner.
I was a sinner. I still am a sinner.
I will still be a sinner.
I'm a human raised by humans.
Yeah.
But
I'm an elf raised by elves.
Right, exactly. But I'm not living in a fairyland. Okay, I want to be as holy as I can.
Right. Well, and the thing is, like, this is what Dr. Ray, he said this on our show before. I think it's very important to say, like, was Jesus God? Did he know everything? Did he know how to convert everybody and reach and touch the human heart of every single person he had was in contact with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was he able to convert most people?
Right.
No. Yeah.
Was he able to keep the 12?
He was able to, but
was he able to keep the 12 with him?
Right. Yeah.
Listen, if Jesus isn't going to do it, if he respects free will and allows, dissent, we should understand, like, that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
But that's not...
Someday my children have to make their own decision
right.
about the life of faith that they're going to lead. But you know what? If they leave the faith, I'm going to do everything I can so that it's not because of me.
Right.
So that I can stand before my Creator at my judgment and say, Lord, you gave me these children and I did the best I could. Right? That I failed. That I did as much as I could with what you gave me. Right? And that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And I expect that my children will stay in the faith. I expect that.
Right.
So,
just wanted to throw that out there.
I'm glad you did. The next thing he mentions here is on visiting public houses, which I think is kind of funny.
Is public houses
a tavern,
bars?
A bar, right? So back in the late 1800s, you weren't drink at home.
Right.
You maybe had wine, but if you wanted a beer, you had to go out. It's not like you just had it at home like we do today. He allows for the visiting of public houses. He's pretty
Catholic.
Unfavorable in general. And talks about the unfavorable effects of visiting public houses is the fact that the father loses more or less that spirit of piety and the fear of the Lord, which is the greatest importance to his children. Choose your companions with great care. Prefer the companionship of your wife and children above all others. I like that line. Okay. Visiting a public house is worse on Sunday. There is nothing so detrimental to a proper observance of the Sunday as spending time in a tavern. The Sunday cannot long appear to your children to be a holy and sacred day, when experience teaches them that it is precisely on this day that the Father is not to be found at home. Experience teaches that he who seeks recreation exclusively in the tavern does not taste the true joys of life.
So this really, a lot of times, I don't feel like is really applicable, because I don't think there's very many men out there who go to the bar.
No, but I think that you could apply it to simply drinking in general. Because it's not the fact that you're in the place; it's the fact of you're going there to get, often you're going there to get drunk. He gives the rules for visiting the tavern, which I think this is really the important thing. And unfortunately, we're running out of time here on the radio program. The podcast will continue. So if you want to hear the rules, which this is some of the best stuff in the book right here, for the average person.
Wow.
Go subscribe to our podcast, CatholicManShow.com.
More on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus. Okay, so the rules for visiting the tavern are these. And it's this is sage wisdom. Remain only so long and no longer. Never pass the appointed time. Never. Never go home always go home at a fixed hour and permit nothing to detain you beyond that time. So decide, I'm going to stay for this long.
This is like the rules that you give yourself while entering a casino.
Yes, it's exactly. I'm going to spend $50.
Right.
And then when it's gone, I'm done.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's also a good rule, because you can have a lot of fun at a casino if you obey by prudence, moderation, rules. The other rule is, as to drinking, let it be so much and no more. I like his words. You see what I mean? He's got this classic old school style.
Let it be so much.
Never.
No more.
Never. Anymore under any circumstances, whatever.
Say that again?
Never anymore under any circumstances, whatever.
Oh, so don't ever drink more than what your limit is.
You decide before you go, I will stay for this long, for this many drinks, and when that has happened, you leave. End of story.
Yeah,
I think that's really, really. I can just tell you in my own life experience.
Tell me.
If I had followed this rule, I'll do that. I have done this, but I'm just going to stay for a couple hours, or I'll stay for an hour. If I say I'm going to go in, I'm going to have 2 drinks, I'm going to stay for an hour, and I'm going to go. It is so hard sometimes, even like still today. It is so hard because you finish your second one, it's like, I'll just have one more. I'll have a quick one, or like whatever.
This is the same thing with going to bed.
Same thing with going to bed, right? Like being able to master yourself.
This is what I have to do.
This is like the crux of life right here. I'm
just not very good at it, and so I have to force myself.
This is like real manliness, real manliness. This is the real battle. Like this is where it's won. It's won over mastery of yourself.
Mastery reveals the man.
Ooh, you should write that down. You should put that on a meme or something. Make a lot of money. I hear people are making money on you can make a lot of money on memes. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. Anyway,
I don't think anybody is.
On prayer.
Okay. Ooh, let's talk about this. I
know. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna like this one.
Yeah.
So he's gonna start off with some basics here.
Do you think that one of the things that I focus on a lot on the show is prayer?
I like to focus on prayer.
I was going through the other day. We have on thecatholicmanshow.com. You can find the episode tracker. We have episode tracker where it has all of our episodes we've ever done, like over 340 of them or whatever.
The gear and the topic.
Right. And I was just for fun, I was kind of going through and just seeing. Cause it's been 6 years and seeing what all we've covered.
We were so young.
You know what? Anna wasn't born when we were doing the Catholic Man
Mary
Show.
wasn't born.
Mary wasn't born.
I just had one kid.
When we how many kids do you have now?
5.
Exactly. But I was going through all the topics, and I realized by going through
5 kids in 6 years.
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Can I shake your hand?
Talk about fecundity, right? Oh no! Just gotta knock my microphone over.
That was an inside joke. That was just for us. But I was going through all the topics.
A lot of prayer.
And I realized my topics deal with a lot of prayer.
Well, our show is really a direct reflection of our own growth,
right?
Our own spiritual, things we're working on.
Right.
So
things that we're not good at, we talk about.
That's what I do anyway. It's like, ooh, I'm terrible at that. I'd really like to be better at that. So let's have an episode where I pretend to be an expert. Then I'll have to be better.
I read a chapter in a book.
Right.
I know it.
I read this blog. Okay. And this is what they said.
I listened to a podcast.
Mm-hmm. No, that would actually take a long time. A whole podcast? Anyway. On prayer. He says, say especially your morning and evening prayers. This must be an invariable rule. Okay, so you have to pray in the morning and in the evening. Here's what he says if you don't. He who does not recite at least a short prayer mornings and evenings shows that if the spiritual life is not totally extinct in him, it is at least in a decaying condition.
I don't disagree.
So this is a minimum of...
this just goes to show, as many spiritual writers have said, that your prayer life is never stagnant. It is either in decline or growing.
Right. Right. It's like it's like if you have a plant and you don't water it, it will die. Prayer is like the water for your soul. It's like watering your soul.
TM.
Yeah. Man is capable of avoiding sin. Is incapable. Man is incapable of avoiding sin without divine assistance. In the ordinary course of divine providence, man will only receive God's helping grace when he asks for it in a proper manner. So if you're not asking for the grace, God will not give it to you because he respects your free will. So therefore, particularly in the morning, beseech of the Lord the grace that you need to overcome all temptations during the day.
I think that's very important.
Especially in the morning. I'm glad he says that because I also think that. I for a while tried putting I tried to arrange my day so I'd go by a chapel. It's like, I'll get my prayer time in then, even if it was in the afternoon. And that was great to like actually be able to visit, stop in and visit our Lord.
Yeah.
But I found actually I had to stop doing that and just do my prayer time in the morning because I need to do it in the morning. I need the grace now. I need grace now. Okay.
And now.
I don't have time I can't be waiting for the afternoon for grace, So I do it all. I just do it in the morning now. And it's better. I like that. He says, if a man fails in his duty to pray, then that day, instead of being a means of bringing him nearer to God, it may bring him nearer to hell. So, you don't pray, you're just like a little bit closer to hell. Think about that.
Didn't Father Larry Richard say that one time? Like, in a men's conference,
he said, look, you either pray every day or you go to hell. And you know what? I kind of feel that way. You won't go to hell because you didn't pray every day. But the fact that you didn't pray every day is the thing that puts you on the path to going to hell. I do think that. Like, if you decide, if you don't pray every day, you're probably not on a great path. So saith Judge David Niles, okay?
His honor.
Keeping the Sabbath.
Let's talk about it.
It is necessary for the eternal welfare.
Hey, just FYI, we have like almost a whole chapter on this topic in our book, Living Beyond Sunday, Making Your Home a Holy Place.
Yes, we do. I think it's a fantastic topic. It's something I like to talk about. So let's talk about it.
You can find that on ascensionpress.com. Our book.
Our book that we wrote with our wives. You should go look at it.
Yeah.
You should go buy it. So let's talk about it. I'm going to talk about it now using somebody else's words.
Okay.
That's how much I like to talk about it. Sometimes I use mine. Sometimes I use others. All right. It's necessary for the eternal welfare of your children that they learn and become early accustomed to keep the Sunday holy according to the holy will of God. Will they do this when they see how careless and indifferent their father is on this point? All work, all worldly cares must cease on Sunday except in cases of necessity. If you wish to recreate and amuse yourself, you will not pass the bounds of moderation. This is, I think, so important. And I
like that last line. That was awesome.
Yeah. Right. It's like you don't get to just watch football all day because that's not what Sunday is about. Sunday is about putting aside our cares, putting aside, our servile work. It's not that you can't do any work on Sunday. You should do things that you enjoy, right? So if you have hobbies, Sunday is a great day for a hobby. It's a great day to do things that are holy, right? It should be a day of rest. It should be a day for your family. It should be a day where your children see a lot of their father.
Yes.
Right? So, but most importantly, they should be days that are set apart. So your children should know Sundays are just totally different from the other days, right? Regardless of what you do, you have to go to Mass. But whatever else you do, your children should know Sundays are different. Okay, there are things we do on all the other days. Sundays are like totally different game, And if you can do that where they know, oh, Sundays are unique, I think that you're doing it well.
Agreed.
On government.
Of the household?
Yes.
Okay.
It is not to be left to the pleasure of the children when they may leave the house and when they should return. The father or mother must give them permission to go and appoint the time when they must return. An hour should be set when all members of the family must be at home, or the doors will be closed and locked on them.
So I have thoughts on this.
Okay.
When I was in high school, my parents, in their wisdom, set a very strict time that I have to be home.
Yeah.
Curfew.
A curfew.
And there were times where I was 3 minutes past curfew.
It could have been 3 seconds. It didn't matter.
And I still got in trouble. Like a severe trouble. And like I complained about that for years. Like that is just ridiculous.
Yeah. You're talking about making a red light or not making a red light.
Exactly. You're talking about like you know what? I left at the same time 2 different instances. One time I got home on time. One time I did not, from the same place.
Right.
That's not that's not part of it.
But now that you're a dad.
But now that I'm a dad, now that I may have grown a little bit, I have realized the value that my parents held on that. Not only just for the instance of like what I say is what I mean, but then also learning as a young man to be punctual, to be able to have foresight to see if there are times where other situations, external variables that I'm not, anticipating, I still have to be prepared for.
Yeah.
And so it did teach me, even though reluctantly, a lot of a lot of times where I could see, develop this foresight, right?
Yeah.
Now, at the time, I thought it was ridiculous, and I was very upset, and I thought it was being too harsh and too cruel.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a very easy thing to fall into as a parent, like thinking that you're being too harsh or not giving, not being charitable. It's like, listen, he was meaning to. That was his intent.
Right.
Morality has a lot to do with intent.
Mm-hmm.
Also has to do with like hitting the mark.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing.
Right.
It's not a participation trophy.
Right. And so, I now give thanks to my parents that they did that.
Yeah. So I tend to have more of a old school fatherhood mentality when it comes to my children. My children do not get to make choices. Children they don't get to choose, okay? Because they don't know how to make good choices, okay?
When you're talking about when they're young.
Yeah, when they're young, but even as they get older, now the choices that they have to make become more serious. And it's like, okay, yeah, you know how to choose to brush your teeth when you're older, but you still don't know how to make the choices that are presented to you now. Because as you grow, the choices become they're heavier, they're more important.
They have more consequences.
So, yeah, like, well, you're driving, okay, now you could die, right? So, you know what I mean. Children, they don't get to make choices unless I give them a choice to make, right? They get to choose when I give them a choice. Other than that, it's like they don't get to choose when they want to have candy, right? They don't get, because otherwise they will choose to have those things all the time, right? They need to be taught how to choose. And I'm not saying you have to be a tyrant, right? Be obviously loving with your children.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this is exactly right, that they don't get to have, what he's saying is, it's not to be left to the children to have the pleasure of when they can do things, what they can do. And we'll come to another quote here in just a second, which is similar to this. But if you don't have this, then there will be no piety in the home, okay? The more you accustom your children to asking, the fact that they need to ask for permission for everything, and that just because they ask doesn't mean that they'll get it, the more honor that they will have for fatherhood. And that's important, not so that they honor you, but so that they will honor God. Because if they don't honor you as father, then they will not honor God as father. And it's important that they honor him, and therefore they must honor you first as children. Because a child knows how to honor their earthly father long before they have any concept or ability to have honor, piety for God in heaven, right? So it's very important that you teach your children obedience like this, okay? This is another good thing, and this is funny because I actually did this next one today. Ironically, I didn't think about it that I was like, hey, like I just did that. But it says it's the duty of the father and the mother to assign to each member of the family that part of the daily work which each must perform. They should have regard to the ability of their little subject, to their likes and dislikes for certain kinds of work, and if possible, gratify their inclination. He should, moreover, once and for all, give a certain work to a certain member of the family. Thereby the work is made is easier, and the workman acquires a certain independence, and all is done well. So he says Don't have rotating chore charts. No. Like you, Mary. I just did this today. I gave out like semi-permanent assignments. Mary, you are dishes. Every day before breakfast, you will unload the dishwasher. And I did that with all the kids. So like we're not switching chores anymore. You are going to get good at your chore. You're going to be able to have independence because like I'm not anymore going to tell you when to do it. You need to know it needs to be done, And so you will get good enough at it to know the chore well and to know its efficiencies, its expediences, and it gives them independence. It gives them agency, right, in being able to do something well and having having like a mastery of something. I've learned something, the intricacies of it, right? And so I think there's a lot of lessons in the chore. That's it. So it's just funny. I did that today. It must be understood that sons and daughters cannot do as they please, particularly if it be of importance, without the knowledge and consent of their father. And so here I wrote, how can they learn piety without that rule? Let's just kind of keep going because we're almost done.
Okay.
Obedience.
I'm enjoying the conversation.
Good. Me too. Jump in as you see fit, as you've continued, as you have. If a child be accustomed to subject its will to that of its father, it will be so much easier for it to obey the laws of superiors, of the civil authority, and of God.
Fulton Sheen has said this. If it is true that, I'm going to butcher the quote, but he basically says, if it's true that we have lost respect and authority for the society and for the government, it is only because we have lost respect and authority in the home first.
Yeah. Let me give you another way of putting it. If obedience to the laws of the state makes a good citizen, if obedience to the precepts of the church makes a good Christian, then a father fulfills in a special manner the requirements of his vocation when he demands strict obedience to his will and accustoms his children to obey. Kind of the same thing.
And this is just this is actually a mercy.
It is.
So when you hear this, you may be taken back.
It's not tyrannical, and it certainly can be done in a tyrannical way, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. It needs to be done out of love and charity. Just like disciplining. Like if you're spanking your kids, you're not doing it out of anger that they did something wrong. It should be done out of compassion, right? It should be done, like out of love, so that the child can be brought along. And so that they can learn the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, is it better for them to continue to do the wrong thing for years and years and years, or to have a good discipline
and understanding
a few times?
A good understanding.
Right. Exactly. Where actually they grow as a human, as a person, right? So I think that this is where I think most parents make mistakes, is failing to really enforce obedience. I just see it all.
Consistency.
I see it all the time. Even among like other people, like in church, they'll tell their kid something, and the kid will like ignore them and walk away. And it's like, I can't believe that you just let them. You just told them to do X, and they totally ignored you and just didn't
do that.
And then you didn't do anything about it. Right. I just think like, my kid would never do that, because they would know if they did.
Yeah, I mean, a good litmus test is like, if you ask them to do something, how many times do you have to ask them to do it?
Right. Yeah, the thing that is really, really hard to enforce.
That's something that we're having to revisit.
Yep.
As because there's a season where you have to train them, and then they get really good at it. And then there's a season where they know, and then they have excuses, or they
start to test the waters.
Right.
I hate that phase.
And we are
it's the worst phase.
We are neck deep in those waters.
Right. Yeah, where they start to push back, feel it out, like
make
what
excuse.
happens. And also, it's not just about obedience, but it's about obedience with a certain attitude. Okay, it's about charitable obedience. We in our house we have a saying: we obey promptly.
Quickly, promptly.
Yeah. What is it? We have, obey first time and every time. And then, I can't remember. It's a saying.
It's a lady.
We say it all
it's a Lady Pamela
Lady
thing.
Pamela. We say it all the time,
Yeah.
Politely and promptly. And that is something that's a struggle because you can't
eye roll and go do it.
Well, you can't discipline a good attitude. The beatings will continue until morale improves. You can't just discipline a good attitude into a kid, right? So it does take. That's just something you can discipline them for having a bad attitude.
No. This is when it is so important to praise the good.
Yes. Yeah, you have to be
to positive
you do.
for affirmation.
Yep.
This is so important when
you can't be always
discipline,
negative.
Yeah,
right.
discipline is a lot of times just being affirming.
Sure.
In actions.
Right.
Being able to
use
say
the virtue words a lot. Right.
We have a whole chapter in our book on language.
What was that
of
book?
Virtue.
What was the book?
Living Beyond Sunday, Making Your Home a Holy Place by Ascension Press.
That sounds like a really good book.
You should check it out.
Yeah, positive. When I tell one of my kids, that was so generous. That was so charitable of you. Thank you so much for doing that. And then just you have moments in your family where you're just so proud of them. Like the other day, little David Jr. was crying because he didn't get to sit where he wanted to sit. And then one of the other girls who had the place she wanted to sit said, well, fine, he can sit here. And then one of the other girls knew that girl was giving up her place. So she gave up her place.
A domino effect?
It was everybody was like, oh, that was so nice. You take my, and it was like, you guys, everybody gets candy. I didn't actually say that, but that's how I felt on the inside. But yeah,
your house and my house are so different.
Well, that's because they're mirror opposites. I have 4 girls, and only 1 boy. They're a lot different. They're so different. They're so different. Okay, here's the last one. He was pretty serious about this.
Okay,
and I think he makes a good point. And I really wanted to get of all people,
my expert opinion.
I want to get your feedback on it.
Okay.
As your children
I like to give my feedback.
As your children get older.
Yes.
It should be his principle never to consent that his son or daughter enter into a matrimonial alliance with a non-Catholic. He says, a father whose heart clings to his faith and church cannot be indifferent about the religious faith of those whom his son or daughter intend to take as partners for life, for better or for worse. What do you think? Because he's very strong. He says you can never consent to your child marrying a non-Catholic.
So it's hard. So in principle, I agree.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it's hard for me to consent because there's I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Right. Yeah, because you married a non-Catholic. Worked out great.
And my dad married a non-Catholic.
Right. So did my mom.
However, I think that it rings more and more true today because non-denominational Protestantism has less and less of a foundation than what it did, in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And there's less morality involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the gaps between
certainly
Protestantism and Catholicism have widened and deepened drastically over the last even 20 years. To where there was very little difference, although big differences, but very minimal differences.
Fewer differences.
Between Catholicism and Lutherans. 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
I agree with you, and I think that is a good point. I one side of my brain says yes, obviously that makes a big difference because we want to have a good Christian understanding. Well, Protestantism today has less Christian in it. It's less Christian in it.
The foundations of that are crumbling.
And on the other side of my brain, it says actually it doesn't matter. The fact that you're separating yourself, you'd be separating yourself from the church. You might as well be a Hindu. If you're a Catholic.
No, there's a difference there.
No, if you're a Catholic and you intentionally leave the Catholic faith, you cannot be saved.
No one's talking about.
Okay, but
that's not even what he's talking about.
In the book, he names several reasons. I didn't write them down. One of them is that you are now aligning this other person who is going to be the most influential effect, like on your son or daughter. And in the world, nobody else will have more influence over your son or daughter than this other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so they could very easily, over time, bring them out of the faith because of their like,
sure,
you know,
there's
the natural love that they will have for them, you know.
Sure. Now the intent matters, right? So like, let's say you're engaged to a gal who's saying, I'm not Catholic. However, I'm going to be entering the church.
Sure. Yeah. Totally. That's a totally different situation.
Right. So I mean, I think you have to say that because you're talking about
whether someone is sympathetic to the church or hateful towards. I mean, yeah, obviously those, even just someone who's sympathetic, you know, as opposed to an atheist, drastically different situations, right? Yeah. But I do think that if we really say our faith is in fact the most important thing,
correct?
You know, would you let them, you know, marry them if like there was another defect? You know, like they were a drug addict. Would you let them marry a drug addict? No. It's far better for them to marry a Catholic drug addict who, you know, they're an addict. You know, they struggle. They're alcoholic, whatever, right? But someone who is Catholic. I mean, it's hard to, you know, it's kind of a contradiction to think about like a devout Catholic drug addict, but it's a hypothetical situation, right? So you can just imagine it. So you would never let your son or daughter, you wouldn't give your consent anyway for them to marry that person. How much more important is it?
Is a soul than the body?
Yeah, exactly. Their soul, their faith is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of the grandchildren that will come from the union, you need them, you know, like your daughter. You need those children to have, once again, a good Christian father, a Catholic father, and vice versa, a Catholic mother, who will bring them up in the right way. So I don't think, you know, like we've kind of like culture today is like, oh, well, they love each other. It's like, give me a break, okay? Go love somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it can't work out. It can obviously work out really well. I mean, you're a perfect example. Your parents, my parents, great examples of it working out really well. But you know, it often doesn't.
Yep.
Were you going to say something else?
No, I mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I
also feel both ways about it. But intellectually, I'm in the same camp as you. Like intellectually, I am 100% in this camp.
Right.
You know, and it's hard for me. I have heartstrings pulling in another direction.
Mm-hmm.
But those heartstrings cannot overcome the fact that intellectually, this is how I feel. You know, like I do agree with that position. You know.
Because ultimately, I just want everybody, you know, to go to heaven.
Right. Everybody.
Right. And the means for salvation is through baptism and the church.
Right. Because that's what the Bible says.
And that's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
Who is the God-man.
Right. He's kind of the one who, like, built the system.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going off of I just want to go off what he says.
Anyway, be the best father you can be. Pray in the morning. Don't visit public houses on Sunday. Stay for only so long and no longer. Have good friends.
Love your wife.
Love your wife. Teach your children to obey. And you'll be a good dad. It's that easy.
And stop sinning.
And stop sinning, especially in front of them. Right?
Just don't sin anymore.
Also, don't do that at all. That's a good one, Adam. That's a good one. Did we put that in the book?
Oh. What a swing and a miss.
We'll what is it? It's like a revision. We'll come out with a revised.
That's right.
We'll wait a year and we'll put out a new edition.
That's right.
That's the word. All right. Thanks for listening.